Welcome to a podcast by Kayleigh, the gateway to unlocking your unlimited potential. I'm creating an army of 6- and 7-figure makeup artists, and I want you to join me. In this podcast, I'm going to be crushing gatekeeping, opening the doors to the knowledge you need, and deep diving into the topics that can push us to the next level. Be prepared for epic guests and answers to the questions you have always wanted to know. No more small business, no more just a makeup artist. The beauty industry is a $250 billion industry, and you're in it. Let's get ready to open those gates. This is a podcast by Kayleigh. Hello everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of a podcast by Kayleigh. We are on episode number 8 of the Mini Mentorship. Now, I often record these in batches, so I'm recording this one, episode 8, on the 6th of April, and the other ones I kind of recorded throughout kind of January and February. So at this point in the Mini Mentorship, I think the last episode that came out might have been episode 5. I've received quite a lot of feedback, and it's honestly bringing like a tiny tear to my eye right now, because I really didn't expect this series to get just the amount of feedback and just people sliding into my DMs and telling me how much it's helped them. It really does make my world when you guys are able to give me a bit of feedback on the podcast episode. So thank you so much if you've been one of those people that have told me that you're listening to the Mini Mentorship and you're really enjoying it and you've learned something from it. It just means the world. We are coming to the end of the Mini Mentorship, which sucks. Like, I'm kind of thinking, okay, how can I come up with another series for the podcast? But we will be resuming with our guest interviews in a few weeks, but we still have 3 episodes left, and this is the episode on selling and social media. Now, selling week in the mentorship is one that I think everybody kind of dreads, because I think when we go into business, I don't know about you guys, but when I went into business, I didn't necessarily go into business to sell. It's never been something that I've been particularly comfortable doing. Like, I remember at Mac, when I was employed at Mac, I was kind of part of the era where we didn't have to sell. We sold through artistry, as lovely as that sounds. So I didn't need to pressure people into, buying 3 items or hit certain targets or anything like that. But when I moved to Urban Decay and certainly Armani, there were, KPIs and things that I had to hit, and selling was a huge part of those roles, which I always just really, really did not enjoy. This week in the mentorship is the week where we kind of dissect all of those kind of preconceived ideas and thoughts and feelings that we have around the word selling ourselves, selling our services. Because here's the thing, guys, selling is a part of what we do. It is a part of being in business. And my job is to help you feel just a little bit more comfortable about showing up for your business, about selling this wonderful service that I know so many of you guys have. And I want to start by saying, did anybody here watch The Simpsons? This is actually something in the mentorship that I actually open with on sales week. Does anybody watch The Simpsons here, or anybody used to watch The Simpsons? I used to love watching it at 6 p.m. on Sky One, and there would be a really cool Domino's advert. Does anybody remember that? And one of my favourite characters was this character called Old Gil. Does anybody remember him? He was like this salesman, and he was completely rinsed in The Simpsons. They would always take the mickey out of him, and they would always, completely destroy him, because he was kind of the conventional, very traditional idea of a salesperson. He was kind of smarmy. He was always using smarmy tactics. The idea that I think a lot of us have about salesmen and salespeople is this really pushy person. I actually remember the very first time that I was actively sold to. I was in Phoenix. I was shopping in Phoenix with my best friend Rose, and we just happened to have a little look at the benefit counter. And we know those Benny babies, they are good at selling. I think if you've worked on benefit before, you're pretty good at selling. And she managed to get my bum in the seat to try High Beam on me. And lo and behold, both of us walked away with 3 products each. And I remember sitting on the seat, and the things that she was saying and the way that she was talking to me and the way that she was presenting the products, it was so pushy, guys, and it made me feel icky. But I was like 19 at the time, so I didn't know how to stand up for myself or say no. I only wanted to buy one thing, and I walked away with 3 or 4, and so did my best friend. That was my first introduction to being sold to, and I just remember how it felt. And I think all of us have felt like that at some point, be it in a clothes shop or makeup counter or even just in a restaurant, anywhere really where we're buying something. There has sometimes been a pressure to buy something extra or buy something more or just buy full stop from the salesperson that's helping you. And it makes you feel really bad, doesn't it? It's not like a good experience. It's not a good customer experience. And that is very, very similar to like old Gil from The Simpsons. And I always open my mentorship by saying that selling does not have to be like that. It does not have to be like those traditional ideas that we have of when we've been sold to in a really pushy, very unelegant way. It does not have to be like that for us. Now, here's the thing, guys. If you are good at selling, and I know there's some of us, there was someone on my mentorship a few years ago who could sell sand in the desert, as it's called. If you're good at selling, run with it. There is nothing to be ashamed of if you are sitting here and you know you're good at selling, okay? If you found the way that works for you, I am not here to tell you to change that. But this is more directed at the people like me who, when it came to selling myself, I felt very icky about it. And I always kind of went back to those principles that I was taught at Mac, which is sell through artistry. Now, here's the thing, guys, that I want you to hear it loud and clear. Mac is a multi-billion-dollar company that can kind of sell through its reputation. Mac can sell through its artistry. But when you are a small business and you don't have that rep, you don't have that clout, you don't have that name behind you, we have to sell. We have to be marketing. Selling and marketing is almost the same thing, guys, right? And the businesses that don't do it are the businesses that don't survive. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. If you are comfortable, uncomfortable selling, I still want you to hear this. The businesses that do not nail the marketing part of the pie of their business do not survive. It's essential. People won't know about your business unless you are selling it, unless you are marketing it, unless you are visible. It's such an essential component to having a successful business. And if you, like me, I did this, trust me, and some days I still even find myself falling into this pattern. If you feel weird about selling, you are leaving money on the table. You are doing yourself and your business a disservice, because there will always be somebody out there that will sell, that will shout about their service, that will shout about their makeup, will shout about their product, will shout about their launch. If you aren't doing it, somebody else will. But, and big buts here, going back to that old Gil example, it doesn't have to be like that. Selling isn't black and white. Selling is a little bit grey, it's a little bit pink, it's a little bit yellow. Selling, and I want this to really land in your brains, guys, selling can look like whatever you want it to look like. Let me talk about what selling means for me. Selling for me is coming from a place of service, okay? I don't sell traditionally, and I've tried to. You might have been with me, you might have seen some of my stories where I've tried to sell very, very traditionally. It doesn't work for me. My audience does not resonate with that. And I think that shows, because it also shows that I don't resonate with it, right? The traditional ideal of selling does not work for my particular business model. You know how I sell? I sell through showing up. I sell through this podcast. I sell through my personal brand. I sell through being me. Actually, what you guys are listening to right now is me selling, right? It does not have to be, here, buy my product, here, buy my course, here, buy this, buy that, buy. It doesn't have to be that. It can be through service. So this whole series, this whole podcast, every single episode of this podcast is selling me, right? It is allowing you guys to connect with me. I sell through connection. And that's not a conscious decision. I haven't sat here and masterminded, right, this is the way that I'm going to sell. It's just literally what comes naturally to me. I prefer to connect with people on a level. I prefer to relate to people. I prefer to work with people who are maybe a little bit more connection focused and who are drawn more into like personality and reality rather than, fake metrics and vanity metrics and things like that. That is how I sell. And I prefer to sell through service. So I like to show, this is my big, amazing brain. This is what it can do for you. I prefer to show you exactly the proof in the pudding, the good, the bad, the ugly, to show you that I'm a real human behind this microphone, that I also don't always get it right. I prefer to sell to you on a very, very, very human level. And to me, guess what? This never feels like selling. This never feels icky to me, because for me, I give a lot of value. If you go on my Instagram account, I mean, I guaranteed if you guys sat here and consumed every single podcast, every single blog post, every single Instagram post that I have ever put out, you would get results. So imagine what would happen if we worked together one-on-one. Imagine what would happen when you actually paid for the service that I offer, right? I prefer to sell through giving you so much value for free that you then come to realize exactly what could happen when you pay me for my zone of genius. That is, to me, selling. And that is not me sitting on live and giving you 10 reasons why you need to join my programs. I've already done all that through all of the value that I have given through the last 4 years of By Kayleigh. Every single blog post, the hours and hours of graft and grind that I've put into this business. I know you guys see it. I know you guys know it. I know you guys get results from the free stuff that I put out there. That is me selling. I sell through service. I sell through nurturing a community. And it feels really good to me to do that. I would prefer to put my energy into nurturing and providing value than putting my energy into something that feels a little bit false and icky to me. And hear this, by the way, guys, if you do sell through the very traditional business model, just because that doesn't feel good to me, doesn't mean it shouldn't feel good to you. If you love that, if you're aligned with that, I want you guys to know there is no right or wrong here. But what I want the guys who feel really weird about selling to hear is that you're probably thinking about selling through the lens of the very traditional business model. We're thinking about selling through all those icky experiences where we felt forced to buy something, the benefit experiences. You don't have to show up like that. You can release yourself from them chains right here, right now, because on this podcast, I want you to figure out exactly what it looks like for you. And it could look very similar to me. Perhaps you're really, really resonating and hearing what I'm saying about selling through service. And perhaps you're like, yeah, I kind of want to do that. Try it. There is a way of selling for every single person listening to this. Every single student in my mentorship will sell in a different way. But the biggest block that's going to stop you will be this idea that you need to sell in that very, very traditional businessman car sales kind of model. You don't. So where do you start when it comes to kind of figuring out, okay, but what does selling look like for me? Well, I would actually look at how you like to be sold to. I really don't enjoy going into Lush because when I go into Lush, I know I'm going to get pestered, I'm going to get talked to. They're lovely. Every Lush girly is so nice. If I go in there with my dog and my boyfriend is a talker, I know I'm going to be fine because he's just going to talk everybody's ear off in there. But if I go in alone, they're so lovely, they're so pleasant. But sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I'm shopping, I just want to put my headphones in and browse and, make buying decisions on my own. And I know in Lush, 9 times out of 10, they're going to start a conversation with me. They're going to talk about something I'm wearing and it's lovely. But sometimes it feels like just not the way that I like to be sold to. I'd sometimes just want to be left alone and get the best service when I ask for it. And a great example, I think, of this is Space NK. This is a makeup shop here in the UK, by the way, guys, if you're an international listener. In there, very often they'll ask, do you need any help? And you'll go, no, just browsing. And then they'll stand around and, they'll wait. And if you need help, they're so more than happy to give it to you. I also liken this in kind of the luxury market to Celine. Whenever I go in Celine, I always get given a really, really lovely experience. And, I get wined and dined. There's no expectation for me to buy, but I sometimes find when I go in Gucci, I find that I get followed around by a sales associate. I'm just not left to browse on my own. So I think the first place to start with you guys is to think about how you like to be sold to. And this also goes not just in-store experiences, because obviously most of us don't have a brick and mortar store. Think about the ways that you like to be sold to online, the influencers or the businesses that you frequently buy from, and perhaps the ones that you don't. I am very, very, and I'm going to go more into this at kind of the end of the episode, but my Instagram is very, very curated. I purposely mute accounts that I don't really, want to hear from if they don't empower me. I unfollow accounts that aren't serving me. I'm very, very curated with what content I consume on a daily basis. And I always find that the accounts that I actively buy from a lot are the ones where I kind of develop like this invisible connection with them, like where you're watching them and you're watching their day-to-day life. And I think Jamie Genevieve is an excellent example of this, right? Jamie Genevieve, I watched for years on YouTube. I love her Sunday vlogs. I still love her YouTube channel. And therefore, I'm going to buy Vive. I don't necessarily buy it because their marketing is so brilliant. I buy it because I'm really bought into Jamie Genevieve as a person. Whereas I find Kim Kardashian and Kayleigh, I used to really resonate with them, but not so much anymore because it's just a lot of selling, right? It's a lot of ramming things down our throat without much behind it, without much connection. So I'm a very connection-focused buyer. I automatically turn off of Instagram stories when it's just like, here's my course, here's my launch, here's my product, here's what it does. And there's no like connection behind it. I don't know that person at all. So I know I'm a very connection-based buyer. I think a good thing that you guys can do after this is just look through your stories. Spend 10 minutes to maybe 30 minutes. Go through your stories and examine the ones that you skip. Examine the ones that you switch off from, and examine the ones that you get excited about. Like, is there a person on Instagram stories where you're like, oh, there's a story, I must click that? Is there a person on Instagram that you really look forward to seeing their content? Why? I want you to go one step further because I know you guys can. You're listening to this podcast because you want to grow. I encourage you guys to start asking yourselves why a little bit more. Why do you enjoy those stories? Why do you enjoy that person? Is it because they're relatable? Is it because they're likable? Why do you buy from certain brands? Why do you buy from Jamie Genevieve? Why do you buy from Skims? Really examine the reasons behind your own buying decisions and also the things on social media and marketing that make you switch off, because this is going to help you start to develop your own selling style. In January, I went very, very hard on the selling. Lauren had just joined the team and, I had that beginning of the year momentum and we were very, very heavy on the selling. That didn't feel good to me, if I'm honest with you. I'm going to hold my hands up. I'm always going to be real with you guys. It didn't feel good to me to be like that on social media. So we actually have made my stories a no sell zone. My stories are simply for me to just talk about things that, I'm going to talk about my course, but I'm not going to sell my course in this traditional model that I was doing in January. It started to affect my own relationship with the way that I was showing up. And what I mean by that is I would find myself not wanting to do stories, whereas now, a couple of months on from that in April, I am back to just being myself on stories with that lack of pressure to make everything this like perfect Canva graphic. Like literally today I posted 3 or 4 talking stories and the lighting was off. I mean, it was really dark in the room. I was wearing no makeup and I'm finally back at that place where I feel like, yeah, I'm happy to show up like that. That is still me selling. Me showing up and talking about the fact that I'm filming some podcasts today and talking just a little bit about them, that is selling. Me walking my dog, me going about London, me posting about what I'm eating that day, these are all still selling. But it doesn't feel like selling, right? And it's, as I said, it's not me masterminding it. I'm not here being like, right, must be relatable, must be likable. That is definitely, it's not a conscious decision. But by me showing up, somebody is going to connect with that. Somebody's going to connect with what I'm doing or my personality. And then maybe they'll buy a £5 contract from me. Maybe they'll join the Level Up Club 3 months down the line. Maybe they'll listen to the podcast and then eventually join the mentorship. Everything, really, what we do, the way that we consciously or unconsciously show up is selling. So it doesn't need to be 10 Canva graphics talking about your services. Sometimes selling is as simple as you just showing up, showing your face, showing your beautiful personality. It doesn't have to be what we think it is. And by looking at what we like and what we don't like, what we buy and what we don't buy, why we buy them and why we don't buy them, we're able to start to understand exactly how we could or should be showing up. I also want to go back to what I said earlier on about if you're not selling, somebody else will. And this goes for talking about your service. I just said selling can be it can look like whatever. It can look like you just showing up and showing your dinner or showing your workout or walking your dog or sharing a book that you really enjoyed. That is selling. But I also do want us to work on being a little bit more comfortable talking about what we do, okay? Because that is powerful and that is still service. And what I mean by that is, yes, when I launch the next round of the mentorship, I am going to be coming on stories and selling it. That's when my no sell zone will come down because I back my mentorship more than anyone. I have seen people in my mentorship go from 0 clients to 30 clients in their first wedding season. I've seen somebody go from 0 income to 30K in their first year. I know my mentorship delivers great results. So why would I not talk about that? If you back your service, if you back your bridal service, if you know your bridal service is thebomb.com. If you know what you do is valuable and changes lives and impacts others, and I want to say makeup's just makeup, but makeup is also more than that. We are more than just makeup artists. I really want you to hear that. Some of the things that I've done in my 10 years, I've transformed actresses into their characters. I've made really, really nervous CEOs feel incredible before they go and deliver a keynote speech. I've helped divorcees who are going on their very first date feel confident enough to walk out my door. What we do is psychologically so much more than a bit of blusher and powder. It really, really is. And if you don't understand that, your clients won't understand that. I want you to really sit and understand how freaking good you are and what we do is. I really want you to sit after this podcast episode and journal it out or write down an entire list of the amazing things about you and your business. I actually get the guys on the mentorship to do this, right? Because I don't think enough of us understand how valuable our career is and what we do is. And it's something that I'm going to advocate until the day I die. We do more than just makeup. On wedding days, I've held babies. I've literally helped them women walk down the aisle. I've buttoned up buttons because nobody had short enough nails. It's more than just makeup. All of us are more than just makeup artists, and being just a makeup artist is incredible, by the way, but we are more than that, and what we do is more than makeup. And if you don't back that, then you're never going to be able to market yourself and your business to the level that it deserves to be marketed at. So this is where we talk about actually selling, maybe more of the traditional way of selling. Because here's the thing, guys, and I said it before and I'll say it again, if you are not selling your service, somebody else is going to sell theirs. There is always going to be somebody who is more than happy to talk about what they do because they back it. So the first thing that I want you to do is back what you do. Back it with every breath that you take. Back yourself. I have a great friend called Beth. She was on the last season of the mentorship. Me and Beth have known each other probably a decade now. Shout out Beth if you're listening. And Beth is very much, I don't think she knows this, but she's very much the reason why I'm sat here. Because me and Beth, we were at Mac at the same time, and I actually left and moved to London. I always looked at Beth because we're kind of at very, very similar levels. We've done makeup for very much the same amount of time. And I always looked at Beth, and Beth was one of the only people who would show up on her Instagram, on her stories, on her Facebook, and was her biggest freaking cheerleader. Any shoot that Beth went on, she would shout about it. Every client, every testimonial, every damn thing that Beth did, she would shout about it. And it made me, I would look at that and I would think, God, look at the amazing opportunities that Beth is getting because Beth backs herself. And everyone right now needs to be a little bit more like Beth, because if you don't back yourself, nobody else will. Nobody else is going to back your business unless you back your business. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to be showing up, because if you're not, you can't expect anybody else to show up for you. If you are waiting for the clients to come to you, waiting for them to find you, waiting for them to recommend you, you're going to be waiting a long damn time. Or you can start putting your big girl pants on and backing what you do first before anyone else. By watching Beth, I started to think, okay, I need a little pinch of that. So I started to talk about what I did a little bit more. I started to go on my stories. This is back in like 2014, guys. I started to talk about the shoots that I was on, the clients that I was with. I'd start to post testimonials. Lo and behold, I am still here right now, and I will talk about my mentorship program with every breath that I take because Beth taught me how to. What you do is brilliant. For other people to know that, you need to tell them it. And sometimes in our business, there are going to be times you might be launching something. You might not have any clients, where you're going to need to put your little selling hat on and start to sell in the more traditional way that we spoke about before. But here's the thing, guys, again, it doesn't need to look like Gil. I want to give you some facts right now, okay? So when it comes to the mentorship and launching the mentorship, I will always go a little bit harder on the selling. I'll sell to my email list and I'll sell to Instagram, and those are kind of the two avenues that I sell to. And I will sell hard. And it was actually the second round of the mentorship, and it was my boyfriend, and I was feeling a little bit low because I wasn't getting many bites or bookings. I had like 1 or 2 people signed up, and my boyfriend, who worked in marketing, said, you have to talk about it until you're sick of it. Then and only then will you have sold enough. Then and only then will you have talked about it enough. And I heard that. I really, really heard that. So I upped the ante on how much I was talking about the mentorship, because it's freaking valuable, okay, right? I know it's valuable. So why wasn't I talking about it? I had a block that I would annoy people, that people would unfollow me, that people would think I'm being too much. I hate that women feel like if they talk about their bloody incredible thing, they're deemed as too much. If people want to unfollow me because I'm talking about a mentorship program that helps women earn more money, they are never going to buy from me anyway. They are never going to be in my community anyway. If people are going to unfollow me because I'm selling something so valuable, then they were never going to be my customers anyway. Do I even want them in my community? Do I even want them absorbing my free content if they're not happy for me to sell for a couple of weeks or, a month of the year when I have given so much for free? And this was something Iman actually said on the podcast. Iman, by the way, one of the best podcasts that I've done. She was a email marketing goddess. Definitely go and listen to that one if you haven't after this. And she said that when it comes to launches and launching her course and launching something new, yeah, she goes hard on selling. And yeah, people unsubscribe. But does she want them anyway in her community when she has given blood, sweat and tears for years and years on podcasts, on blog posts, on YouTube videos, on reels? If they're happy to absorb all that free content and not let her sell her paid stuff, does she even want them? And I heard that. I really heard that. Because yeah, I spend hours. I'm going to say 80% of my week giving things out for free. And I bet you guys do too. I bet you guys sit there and you create content and you do content days and portfolio days. You're allowed, if you're giving out so much value, to sell your paid things. And if people don't like it, they were never going to buy from you anyway. They were never going to be a customer or a valued member of your community anyway. So talk about your shit. And here's some data. I was supposed to do this 10 minutes ago, but I got all ranty. Whether you have any fear that you're talking about it too much. 75% of our followers don't even see our stuff, okay? I have 13k followers. I get on a good day 300 views of my story. 75% of our followers don't see our shit. 80% won't remember it anyway because we are consuming so much, right? Think about how many stories we view every single day. 100% of your new followers won't see your promotions. Therefore, we should be talking about it. Not 2 times more, not 3 times more, 10 times more for 100% of our community to actually see it. I actually heard an interesting statistic as well, that people actually have to see something 10 times to buy it. And I examined this, right? I have seen, I don't know if anybody else has seen this, but there's like that Skims pajama set that's got the cute cherries on it. I think I saw it first in like Susie Bonaldi's vlogs, and I've seen it and I've seen it and I've seen it. And the other day I saw it, I think on Victoria, her reel, and I was like, right, the time is now. I love this little thing. Every single time I see it, I love it. Let me go and pull the trigger. It wasn't the first time that I saw it in Susie's vlog. It was the 10th time that I actually was like, let me go and pull the trigger. And then by that point, it wasn't in my size anyway. But the proof is in the pudding there, guys. It can take up to 10 times for people to pull that trigger. And when it comes to actually talking about your service, if you're putting one story out a week, 75% of people aren't even seeing that one story that you've put out a week promoting whatever it is that you want to sell. We need to be screaming about it until we are sick of talking about it. That is my attitude when it comes to these launches. I talk about the mentorship program so much when I'm launching because it's valuable as fuck, but also because the majority of my community don't know that it's launched. And I know this because every single year I will get, when I'm in week 2, I'll get people wanting to sign up and they have to now wait for the next round. Scream about it. Become sick of it. Only then have you talked about it enough. It takes a little bit of practice to get to that level, by the way. I'm on season 7 and only maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago did I become comfortable really screaming about it. Season 2, I had to learn from my boyfriend that I wasn't talking about it enough. And actually, I remember specifically, I went out to lunch with one of my girlfriends, Tony, and she had no idea. She follows me and she had no idea that I did a mentorship program. That goes to show that she wasn't seeing my stuff. She didn't even know about it. So she was like, Kayleigh, you need to be posting that way more. She actually made me do a story then and there at lunch. So let that data there be proof that if you are marketing and talking about what you do, you might just need to turn up the heat a little bit more, a couple more levels. So that's why I encourage you to go and write the list of all of the amazing things. I want to see a page of the amazing things about you and your business that others might not be giving. That page is your marketing, by the way. Let's talk about social for a little bit. Let's talk about social media. Now, this podcast episode is called Selling and Social, but I'm not going to dwell too much on it because I've done quite a few podcasts and there's just so much content that I've given about Instagram, and I would be here for at least another 6 hours if I wanted to redo all of that. So what I would say is social media, a huge beast and a huge part of marketing. Social media is essentially, it's free for us to use, right? We should be utilizing it heavily as one of our main marketing tools to get visibility on our business. If you feel very, very unconfident or you want to understand social media and Instagram a little bit more, I really would encourage just jump in the Level Up Club, because every single month I do a live training on Zoom around Instagram. So I've done live trainings and these are in depth. These are literally so in depth. They're like an hour to an hour and a half long. I've done them on engagement rate. I've done them on how to get more followers. I've done them on bios. I've done them on reels. Next month we're doing one on how to look after your account, make sure you don't get hacked, all of the legalities that go into that. I'm going into all of that kind of thing next month. So if you are looking to understand social media a little bit more, I would start there. There is so much valuable content in the Level Up Club, so just jump in. Also, as part of the Level Up Club, you do get an extra podcast episode, and a few of those podcast episodes are surrounding Instagram. As you guys know, I do a few Instagram challenges. So in February, I posted 3 times a day for a month, and in March, I posted 31 days of reels on both of my accounts. So I do lots of challenges to report back the results that I found. Fun fact, 31 days of reels, I got less than 100 followers. Reels do not work as much as people tell you they work. But anyway, I do entire podcast episodes where I dissect these challenges and what I learn and what I would recommend that you guys take from it. For the social part of this podcast, I would encourage you, if you are looking to learn more about that, to either dissect a few of the podcasts that I have out on this podcast or jump into the Level Up Club if you want to go super duper in depth. But the one thing that I will say that I really do want to touch on is people's experiences with social media. And for the most part, a lot of what I hear in the community can be very negative, and I get it. I am not here to paint positivity over real feelings. I'm frustrated as well. My reach is so damn low right now. I find it extremely frustrating that I have 13k followers and about 10 to 20% of them actually see content and they've clicked follow to see it. It doesn't make sense. It's not, the math isn't mathing. But anyway, I know it's a really frustrating place, but maybe the next few tips can make it a little bit less frustrating for you. As I mentioned before, earlier on in this episode, I talked about curating your experience on social media. I found myself being very, very disenchanted with Instagram probably a few years ago, maybe around 2020. I listened to a podcast, I believe it was the Manifestation Babes podcast, and she said that everything in her life, if she can do it, she will control what she consumes. So she doesn't watch the news, she doesn't watch things that she knows negatively impacts her, and that goes for social media as well. So I really, really ran with that, and I looked at my feeds, and I found it was a place where I compared myself a lot. I found that I was consuming things that just didn't really mean much to me or made me feel negative. I followed a lot of influencers that, for lack of a better word, made me feel not good enough. They're going on all these elegant trips. They have all these amazing houses. They have all these gigantic halls. And that would make me feel not very good in myself. I would try and replicate these lifestyles that were just not real. I would compare myself to the artists who were getting booked because at the time I wasn't. So I said enough is enough. I think I can have a little bit more control over my experience on Instagram. So I went through my following feed and I unfollowed or I muted, if I knew it would cause a little bit of aggro, I unfollowed or muted any account that made me feel negative about myself, negative in my mindset, or just didn't give me anything. I think we're all following a lot of accounts that are kind of mindless in that they don't give us anything. So if an account didn't make me feel empowered, inspired, or positive in any way, shape, or form, I unfollowed it. The reason behind this was I wanted to try and create a feed and, an experience on social media that lifted me up rather than drained me. And that's how I felt when I went on Instagram for a long time. I felt very drained. I felt not good enough, like I didn't have enough, or that I wasn't worthy or good enough. And I didn't want to feel that way anymore. So after that little change, I found that every time I went on Instagram, it was quite fun. It was quite a nice experience. And for the most part, that is my Instagram to this day. When I go on stories, I leave most of the time feeling happy and inspired and fired up. That is a way that you can feel, by the way, if you start to curate your experience and start to take control of the experience that you're having on social media. We can't control everything. We can't control if algorithms push our stuff, or we can't control what Instagram is doing behind the scenes, but we can control what we consume to a certain extent. I also stopped consuming the news. I went to New York a few years ago, and it was just around when the kind of Russia-Ukraine conflict kicked off, and I was watching it all the time, and my boyfriend said, enough, you need to stop watching this, because it was making me so angry. It was making me so negative and worried and anxious for the world and all of these different things. And he was like, how is this helping you? How is this you can't make a difference to this situation, so you need to control what you're consuming. Everything I consume, if I can control it, I will try and control it. That goes for my social media, my TikTok, everything. If I can make it a bit more empowering and a bit more positive to my day, to my mindset, then I will. I think the first thing to do if you want to do something like this is just to be more aware of what we are consuming and really look at the way it affects you. Really look at each individual account and ask yourself, and this is a process, this isn't something you can do in an hour, it's something that might take a couple of weeks, but look at each account and ask, what does this give me? Does it give me anything? Because it can be real easy to follow 7,000 accounts that are all kind of mindless. I find a lot of brand accounts, I'm consuming their content and I'm like, this is extremely boring and mindless. Why don't I just unfollow that? It's not giving me anything. Nothing at all. No positive, no negative. Therefore, it's worthless, right? We can't control a lot on social media, but we can control what we consume through muting, through unfollowing, through interacting with the accounts. If you like my account and you don't see it enough, just go through it, like a few posts, interact with a few posts. This is what I do. When I'm not seeing an account a lot on my feed and I want to see it a bit more, I interact with them a little bit more. I might comment on 2 of their posts so they start, naturally popping up for me more. We can curate and control what we consume to a certain extent. And I think that is the first step to repairing your relationship with social media. If you find you leave it feeling drained, you don't have to, because I never leave mine feeling drained. Never. I would start there because it's going to make the rest of what we spoke about a little bit easier. If you are happy to go on the app, if you're getting a more empowering experience from the app, you're going to be more likely to market. You're going to be more likely to sell. You're going to be more likely to start showing up on it in a different way. You're going to show up with a different energy, with a different vibe, as opposed to the person that's showing up on it because they have to show up on it. Does that make sense? But as I said, I have hundreds of hours of trainings on social media. So if you are looking to just improve, your followers, your engagement rate, your reach, this and that, I would seriously consider jumping into the Level Up Club, because that is the main way that I can help you. But there is tons of free content as well. As I said, just go back through my podcasts. We have loads of amazing podcasts on social media. I would actually start with the incredible one with Vivian Johns, who is just an excellent expert in social media. Also Kelsey Bain, Mia Connor, they all touched on social media and it was incredibly, incredibly useful. So I think I'm going to leave it here. Selling and social in the mentorship is 2 different weeks. So we have 1 week on selling and we have 1 week on social media. So I've kind of put 2 weeks into one here. And I often find after selling week, most people feel like a giant weight lifted off them, because they kind of discover that actually selling doesn't need to be what we think it is. It can be anything. If you take anything away from this episode, I hope the main point that you've taken away from this is that, number 1, selling can be whatever it looks like for you. And number 2, it is okay. And I would say more than okay to talk about what you do and talk about how incredible what you do is. Because as I said, if you don't, somebody else will. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, but I hope you really enjoyed this one and I hope you found it useful. I'm currently sitting looking at the edit and it's at 52 minutes. So I have a feeling it's going to be a long one for you guys. I hope you don't mind. But I will see you back here next week for a very juicy episode on converting inquiries into bookings. I hope you loved it. I will see you next week. Bye, guys. You have been listening to a podcast by Kayleigh. Thank you so much for tuning in today and being on this mission with me to self-improvement and taking steps towards financial empowerment. If you liked what you heard today, be sure to follow me on the gram at By Kayleigh Podcast, where I post pretty much daily. I would also love to hear your thoughts, feedback, and energy. So please do leave me a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you are listening today. In the meantime, I want you to go forward, believe in yourselves, and be the change you want to see. Bye, guys.